the whole job, maybe the retainage amount is like $200,000 if you were to look at the entire job.
We are retaining, I don't know how to best to explain this. We are retaining 10% of the work that has been performed so far, of which is basically 959,000. The value of the contract is 2.2 million. So there's a number of
Okay.
of dollars out there still which we haven't.
Well,
Oh, no, please.
that's what I was worried about. I'm like, if we only got 95,000, I mean, I work in that area and I know there's still a lot of work to be done, especially the top coat and a lot of, okay.
Yeah, and
That's
from-
what I was,
Sorry.
okay.
Please.
From that perspective, if the contractor were to walk away today, that's where we have a performance bond. That's what we have that for, to protect us.
Alderman Wesley.
Are we, is the company taking samples of this asphalt coming in on that area? Like you said it was, because it's being NFT funding and special service area too?
This one is not a motor fuel tax project, but we are using Testing Service Corporation to do asphalt, and they've done the concrete testing out there as well. So they're doing the material testing for us. The general inspection is being performed in-house.
And have we had any problems with the samples that have been taken, or have we not get the results back yet?
I can't answer that question. I can answer that question for you next week. I don't know that we've received any of the test results even back yet.
Okay,
I know we did on a concrete, but not necessarily on asphalt yet.
well, I know this is a special service area and the industrial park's paying for it, but the point is, I need to make sure that asphalt is gonna be staying intact and we don't have a situation that we had down the line here, so. I have no problem approving this, providing that we get the, did you say they did take asphalt samples?
Yes, IDOT sets up, whether it be an MFT project or not, IDOT sets up basic testing criteria that you have to follow. And that's the testing criteria we've been following. Whatever testing reports we have to date, I can get those to you. It's not uncommon for them to do the tests and us not to get the reports for several months later. That's just a normal construction industry way, that's just how it works.
Well,
When they test, since that you want to get into this issue.
No,
When they
I understand that, but-
if they find a problem, it's handled immediately at that moment. So their tester finds a density problem, or their tester finds a problem with the mix in the plant, that's addressed immediately with the contractor to resolve the issue.
well, you know what? Stop there, because I'm not going to get in a debate on it again, because obviously it happened somewhere else there and we didn't stop the process.
But
You know,
but we
but
weren't
we won't
involved
get
in
into that right now.
We weren't involved in that.
But here's the
process on that
situation.
project.
It's the industrial park paying for it, but I want to make sure that these people are getting what they paying for and the asphalt is good up there. That's all I'm saying.
As-
And
as do
I,
we. That's our
and-
top
and I have
priority.
no problem approving this, but I would like to see the samples or the report on the asphalt that they put down.
Right, but
Thank
prior to next week, we may not have that. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
So the way I understand this, the report itself would come out maybe even several months later.
Yes, the report is just a summary of what happened. If there are test results that fail, or if there are problems, those are addressed immediately. That's why we're paying that consultant, that testing consultant to be there, is to notify us and to make us aware of the test results and to perform the quality control testing. So that's all done immediately if there's problems. If there's no problems and everything is routine, we may not see the test results for 3 months, just because it's paperwork that has to work its way through the process.
Right, and when they tested, the issue would have come out right then and there, right?
Exactly.
And then it would have went to Dave Graff and,
As an inspector in the
Alerting them.
field, Testing Service Corporation, they have every right to reject a truck and send them home.
Sure.
And, during my time out in the field, the many years I spent in the field, I sent several trucks home. That's just what, you have the right to do that out in the field. But the testing reports follow along months later typically.
and we usually do have good, that process seems to most of the time be working, because we have several streets that we've done over the past years that go in, they're good, because we catch these things and send the truck home or test it and call it out right then and there. We had one instance in our last street project where things didn't go the way they should have. So I'm not sure that we need to redesign the process on one instance. Alderman Police.
I just want to say, in the special service area, when they put in that first binder, there was a couple spots that got messed up when they walked away from the job and before they came back. What happened was they ground it up, they took it out and redid it. And the second coat of binder that they just put on is still better, smoother surface than the other road we're having a problem with.
Alderman Wesley.
That's fine. If you want to approve this, fine, but I'm voting no for it because simple reason is I am not going to get another predicament that we are in now with another project. I cannot support that unless I get the samples approved that the road is done right in the asphalt. Because down the line, if it's done wrong, okay, and you're reducing it already, we don't have enough to have them regrind it down again if it gets down to it. And there is a problem if we find a problem in it with the samples that I just can't do that. I made a mistake on the last one, and I'm not making a mistake on this one. Even though the industrial park pays for it, the industrial park also pays taxes in this community, and I cannot do that. Thank you.
And I want to make sure I understand, the samples in the report, are they, at first I thought we were talking about the report. Now, are there samples, or is that one and the same?
That's a sample that they take, they give you a report, and we should have that before we approve it.
So then the sample and the report are the same thing that we're talking through, and that's, the sample would be the one that comes in a couple months after the fact at times. Is that correct?
They perform sampling and testing at the batch plant when the asphalt comes out of fabrication or you know, when they create the mix. They perform testing in the field. At any stage during that process, be it at the batch plant or out in the field, they have the right to stop the contractor or to tell the contractor that there's a problem, to bring that to that contractor's attention. Okay? Sometimes those test results, an extraction test, a big D test, sometimes those tests don't occur or physically can't occur. I mean, just the physical process of making the test can't occur until after the construction has already been completed. Then there's a third aspect, and that is if everything is fine and everything's gone through and it's fine, then we get a report.
Okay.
So that report's the very last thing that actually reports on the results. And that report is the report that we may not get for, you know, months later.
Okay. Alderman Police.
The testing service that we hire, basically they're testing the compaction on the binder or how coarse it is or what's the, you know.
All of the above. They're testing the percentage of asphalt in the mix, the petroleum product in the mix. They're doing a sieve test to make sure the proper aggregates are in the mix. They're doing an analysis of the aggregate to make sure that they're proper. They're doing field testing to determine density. They're doing temperatures, anything associated with asphalt, or you run the same list in concrete. They're doing all those things for concrete.
When they're testing, I mean, do they know right away if something fails or not?
Some tests yes, some tests no. What they do, though, and this is why we pay them, is when the red flag goes up and that something is wrong, they bring it on those instant tests, they bring it to the contractor's attention and say, hey, this is a problem. And on those tests that come back a week later or whatever, if there's a problem, they bring it to our attention and the contractor's attention and make us aware of it.
All right. My thing is, I mean, somehow the city should be somewhat protected. You know, we don't want to end up like Alderman Wesley's talking about, like those other two roads that were put in. And now I really don't even think we have enough money if we were to tell them, hey, you know, we're going to tear it out and resurface, even if it's just the wearing surface. I don't think we're holding enough money. Maybe we should have some kind of policy in place where we are protected where we can take this kind of step.
But the money is a side issue. You're protected by the specifications of the project. Did the contractor meet the specifications or did he not meet the specifications? If he did not meet the specifications, then you have the recourse to go after him because he did not meet the specifications. It won't cost the city a cent if he didn't meet the specifications. If he did meet the specifications, then, I mean, we're protected because the specifications said that he met the specifications, so therefore we got a good product.
Man, I don't mean to get off this project, but on the other project, they didn't meet the compaction test, and I'm not seeing any action done on those roads. I mean, so far we haven't heard anything. I mean, something may come up at the next meeting or something.
Again, yes, right now we are working to compile all of the test data and to present all of that data to you so that you can make an intelligent decision as to whether they met the specifications or whether they didn't meet the specifications. So we're going to give all of that information to you, along with our recommendations and our technical advice. So that's coming, and I don't know what more I can say about that except it's coming.
Okay, so back to the service area number 12, payment number 2. Are there any other on the question? Are there any other questions on this special service area? Mr. Mayor.
Gary, did you mean to say, did I understand you correctly, TSI is checking the batch at the plant?
For special service area number 12, Testing Service Corporation is doing both batch plant testing and field testing.
And
Special
on
Service
the other
Area
project,
12
they didn't do it that
Because-
way. They just did the field testing.
because that was an MFT project and a QAQC project.
Hmm.
This is not QAQC, it's just local capital funds. They're being administered completely different.
Okay.
That's different, okay. Okay, there's a motion, a second. I called the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oppose.
Aye.
So,
Yes. He's opposed.
will the minute taker please call the roll? No, there's 5.
Yes.
Alderman Police.
But excuse me, it was made in the positive. The motion was made to approve the.
payment.
Okay,
Right, I understand.
Alderman Winger.
yes.
Alderman Cadella.
Yes.
Alderman Wesley.
No.
Alderman Shockey.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is City of Elmhurst stormwater request, and the county has done took a look at the floodplains and is trying to redraw the floodplain map, and that affects flood insurance, et cetera, and in the floodway area. And the City of Elmhurst is questioning the methodology used in that, and I believe what really caused me to take a hard look at it is because it does affect their municipality. It looks like quite a bit. So that they're looking to present their rationale of why that map, why the new map amendment it could be incorrect, and to go united in this to DuPage County. And I'm not really adverse to that, although I do have a question of if new methodology is used, could it impact Wooddale or the region differently, or would it just shrink the floodplain area?
I think it was in May or June, I think it was in June, we presented the revised maps to the committee showing what the proposed changes were for Wooddale. Very generically, the floodplain limits didn't really change in Wooddale, but the floodway limits did expand in Wooddale. So, and that's essentially what's happening in Elmhurst, though, to a much greater degree. It had very little impact in Wooddale. It only affected, relatively a few number of properties. Elmhurst, it's affecting a number of properties. And that's what they're questioning is the methodology for those maps.
Okay, because I'm willing to agree to this, but I want to be certain that we agree with their methodology. That is their methodology shrinking the floodway and floodplain areas, or maybe we need to inquire on that before we jump in with this. Yeah.
the county's maps are proposing to increase the floodway and the floodplain. Elmhurst's presentation, which I can share that presentation with you if you would like me to, but that presentation basically just asks some basic questions and raises some good points. And it's real, it's not accusatory, it's real generic, just this seems to make logical sense, how come it's this? And that's what the presentation does, is if we add all these reservoirs, how come we're raising the floodplain elevation? How come we're considering storms that aren't even in DuPage County or coming from southern Illinois? How come we're considering, there's a lot of different factors that they're asking, and good questions. So that's all they're doing, is asking some good questions of county and hoping to get county's dialogue going with the county.
Okay, good, okay.
The county's currently struggling with FEMA on a lot of the same issues. So the county's kind of hearing it now from more than one person.
Okay. That answers my question. It sounds like they're being conservative of saying, why is the map so large? And not trying to shift the map in a different direction.
No, they're not lobbying to say, let's redraw the map in Elmhurst. They're just lobbying to say, this seems like a logical question, how can you answer it? That's all they're doing
Okay,
in their presentation.
okay, thank you. Any questions, Alderman Wesley?
They have done this before, and when we were in stormwater, just for you guys know, they do have one engineer over there that handles the situation like this. I mean, they got 5 engineers, and that's what he does. We have supported this before on issues. I see no reason why we shouldn't support this, so I would make the motion that we go forward with this if it's all right with you.
Second, on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 8, and this is the electricity purchase update, and how timely this is because I do have some comments and also questions on this. It looks like some of the rates that we could buy in bulk are dropping, so we may want to keep a closer eye on that and entertain sending some of our accounts to a different electric provider. And it also looks like the state legislature has been successful in lowering electric rates, and that is for the residential customers. And someone in my ward raised an issue to me between this committee meeting and the last one, and their issue is with the high rise, and that the electric company, they're stating, is charging commercial rates to common areas of condominium buildings. But for example, the Dominion condominium building, there is no commercial there. Yet their electric rate has skyrocketed disproportionately because of the inappropriate charges. And is this something that Mr. Holm, would you want me to bring that up under a separate agenda item, or do we want to roll that all into this discussion as well on how we handle that? Perhaps we could talk with our ComEd rep to bring that issue forward, and that sort of thing. So do you want me to bring that up in a different item, or do you want to kind of wrap it all up into this one?
Well, that's your prerogative as chairman, how you want to handle that.
Okay. Then we'll go through the items listed, and then I say we roll it in and come up with an approach on how we go forward with that one. Alderman Wesley?
I have no problem doing this, but I think what we could do is have staff call ComEd regarding that instead of us having a discussion on it when we don't have a response from ComEd in that regards. I mean, you did a very good presentation on that, and that has been brought up too, and I remember that conversation. So I think we should go through this, my recommendation, but it's your committee, and then have the direct staff to call ComEd and address that concern of that one building that we know for sure, but there may be more.
Right.
But maybe in that perspective, therefore, we got the response for ComEd, and we could then counteract with ComEd, agree or not agree with
No,
ComEd.
right, and I agree with the approach. That would be our first step to get that ball rolling. And so, Gary, do you need any further direction on that aspect of it? To contact ComEd and,
But we can contact ComEd through our community relations contact at ComEd.
perfect, and then you'll bring it back and to the committee, okay. Then next item, it looks like you're recommending that the city officially become a member of NIMEC, which, Mr. Helm, I'll let you go into a little more detail on what they do and why it would be important to join them.
This item has been before council on and off for almost going on 18 months now. We originally were with the Illinois Association of Wastewater Agencies, and as our wastewater plant, we first explored the idea of third-party vendors. At that time, council directed us to wait and see what the state legislature was going to do come the new year with the rate increases, and here we are in August. They finally appears to have reached a resolution that's, I believe, right now sitting on the governor's desk. And that resolution, however, won't affect us as a commercial customer. So we're now back to either being ComEd's customer or seeking third-party power again. IAWA basically fulfilled the terms of what we were in for. In other words, they gave us quotes at that time, so we're no longer part of IAWA from an electricity purchase standpoint. This cooperative, Northern Illinois Municipal Electric Cooperative, represents a number of municipalities in this regard, with respect to going out to third parties and seeking electrical rates. I've been in contact with them basically since the early part of this year. Their rate is $250, so a nominal fee. They basically do all the legwork and then bring a contract to us, and we're not obligated to necessarily sign that contract. We can say no, thank you. They do all the legwork. They do that because I'm sure they get a commission on the back end from the electric companies. So whether we go with company A, company B, company C, they're going to get a commission on the back end. So we're going to get cost savings. They get their commission. We pay them a very nominal fee, and that's how the process works. So we are recommending at this time to become a member of NIMEC for $250. And then we're also basically requesting authorization for the manager to work directly with NIMEC and enter into electric purchase contracts. The reason why we're requesting that authority is that when you receive a contract proposal from a company, it's generally good for 24 hours.
Oh.
So when you receive that proposal, you have to sign on the dotted line. And we can't go through the normal process of coming back to council and getting approval, because by then the price won't be good anymore. It's a commodity that fluctuates so much that the quotes are only good for a very limited amount of time. So that's our request.
A couple questions that if we do take a few of our accounts, and first let me ask that the accounts, when we say accounts, do we mean that one account might be our streetlights, another account might be City Hall? So am I correct in that, or how are
No,
you defining accounts?
The way the law works, unfortunately right now, our streetlights wouldn't be eligible, our city buildings wouldn't be eligible. We're only talking about like our wastewater pumping, our water pumping. That's the only things we're talking about that would be eligible. Everything else is not eligible to apply to this.
Okay.
Pumping, yeah, it's a pumping one. But each individual lift station is metered. So each individual lift station is such a small account that it doesn't add up. But when you bring it to the treatment plant and now you're pumping the whole city, that applies then.
Okay. Then also infrastructure costs. Is there any kind of new infrastructure that we would need to bring in if we're doing a new electric company? Is there a startup cost other than the minimal fee to work with the salesperson?
If there are any costs to switch over, that would be part of the contract terms that I can't speak to. I mean, that would have to vary per contract. What NIMEC will do was give us generic contracts to review ahead of time, so that within 24 hours you don't have to review the whole contract and sign on the dotted line. They'll give you contracts ahead of time from XYZ Power Company. You can have our attorney review those contracts so that when the day comes and we have a quote, We've already reviewed the contract. We know exactly what it says. The only thing we have to review is the dollar amount and then sign on the dotted line. So
Okay.
that review process would all have to go through our attorney to be, comfortable with.
Okay, and lastly, before I call on my fellow alderman, it, if we were to switch over to another electric provider and like the sewage pumping stations, et cetera, those are, critical operations that is there like a hot cut or how do we actually cut over? Is there overlap of some sort? Is there a backup generator put in place if the cut doesn't go as planned?
It's all on paper. That's all it is. ComEd is no longer generating power. ComEd is really now just a distributor of power, and these other companies are also just distributors of power. And it's all on paper. One day we start getting a bill from a different company as opposed to getting a bill from ComEd.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up for me. I'm going to call on our city manager, then I'll call on Alderman Police, then Alderman Cadella. Mr. Manager?
Yes, if you recall, last year at the IML, we talked to several of these providers, and they were explaining that very same issue that you brought up. And we had considered going with some of these different providers based on what the rates were. Until recently, we didn't know that we could beat the rate, and that's why we decided now to go with them. But how many municipalities are in this particular group that we're going to join right now, Gary? Do you know? Over 100. So we're getting, we're getting volume here. And again, when you go to the IML this year, you'll see these booths there, and you can ask further from those people how they work and everything, because we did that one year, just so the others are aware of how this works.
One other quick question. Do you know offhand if like a condominium building could actually switch over if they wanted to?
Again, I don't know that they would qualify because it's only for very specific uses.
Okay.
Like our buildings wouldn't qualify, so I don't know that they would qualify either. But
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Yes, ComEd did put out a general news release that they are trying to stabilize the rates for condominiums, not to exceed residential areas, but they haven't worked those details out yet, but they are trying to do that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Police?
When we enter into this contract, is this for a year or a month?
up until recently, I could have given you a very specific answer to that. But now, I don't know if you've been reading the news, Illinois is now wanting to go away from the auction system, and they want to create their own government agency to regulate power and the cost for that. So what the new rules will be under that new government agency, I cannot tell you yet. The auction system was, we would be under a new contract for approximately 1 year, and then in '08, we would have all had a new auction again. But now that the auction system seems to be going away, I don't know the answer to your question.
Right. Reason I'm asking is, being right now it's summertime, rates are probably at their peak, where wintertime they drop, just like natural gas goes up in the winter and drops in the summer. I was just curious how that worked.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, we're not residential using the air
So
conditioner. This is
It's
for,
it's a whole
Yeah.
different ball game.
yeah.
Alderman Cadella.
The fact that we don't have a really a good identification of a contract length, the $250, is that an annual fee to be a member, or is that every time we want to do a new contract? Are we going to have to sit here every time we do a new contract? How's that going to work?
The $250 membership fee for NIMEC is to become a member of NIMEC. NIMEC will then negotiate contracts for you, presumably as long as you're a member of NIMEC. How often those contracts occur, again, I don't know under the new system. Remember, NIMEC is going to really get their money on the back end from the providers.
Thank you.
Alderman Shockey.
My question was answered by Alderman Felice. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wesley.
Gary, I have one question. Joining this for $250, but that contract is not going to give us what the bottom line could cost yet. We have a ballpark figure? I know it says in here it could save us $10,000 to $20,000. I mean, are we looking at, signing a contract with them for, I know what the joint member's 250, but what I'm drawing back is, do you have any idea what the organizations that are in this already, what their prices may be down the line, or?
The first on the $250 and the membership on NIMEC, NIMEC will do all the front-end work for you.
I-
And when you close on a contract with the utility company, then you owe the $250 to NIMEC. If you never close, they're
So it's an option to accept the contract that they come back
Exactly.
with us. But my
as far as
question
the
is,
other communities, go ahead.
and I understand it, but since we won't know what the contract's going to read, because you said it's a 24-hour turnaround just about, so where I'm coming here is, where do you draw the line on how much are we going to commit to a contract for paying electricity, or is there going to be a line drawn up on how much we're going to pay, go out for, to buy the electricity? Is there going to be a draw line, or are we going to have an open checkbook and just sign the contract?
No,
I mean, I'm just, that's
Our-
where I'm leery.
Our baseline's gonna be where we're at today, and that's ComEd.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, we're gonna, yep.
Alderman Police?
I think maybe what Alderman Wesley might be thinking is, are we looking to save 10 grand, 20 grand? If we get 10,000, we're going to settle for that, and that's what we're going to sign for? Is that what we're thinking?
No, he answered my question saying he can't go, he will not go above the ComEd rate. Am I correct? That was, thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to recommend that the city officially become a member of NIMEC. The membership cost is $250, and that the manager be authorized to work directly with NIMEC and enter into electricity purchase contracts, which would result in lower electric rates for the city. Is there a second? Second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 9, and that is the Salt Creek Bike Trail final balancing change orders. So that is for the trail, not the bridge, the bike trail itself. And I do have just two general questions, and then I'll open it up to any questions, comments, discussion. First of all, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. If I try and calculate Wooddale's share, I take the 93,000 and some odd dollars plus the 104 that we had to pay for the crossing at Prospect and some odd dollars, and then the 7,900 for the engineering costs. And I would add those two together plus like $300, and that would be my total.
That should be if I did my math correctly, that should be that $205,076 on the last page.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Emmer. Okay, right. Okay, it's added on the next page, the total. Good. And then, so my follow-up question, that I know that there was this change order number 1 for the fencing around the reservoir, and earlier, in an earlier discussion, we talked about how that would not be Wooddale's responsibility. And so then, how does the change order process work? That then, if we agree on it, if we accept the change order, then do you pass it over to the responsible party, or how is that part going to work?
Yeah, when you asked me, and it had been so long since I worked on this project, I was still confused. But we are the agency in charge, so
Okay.
we have to approve the change order.
Okay,
But this particular change order actually goes under the line item for the forest preserve.
okay,
So it's actually their share, if you will. It goes towards
Right.
their share. It doesn't go towards Wooddale's share.
good.
We're approving the change order because we're the lead agency, but they're paying for the fence.
Okay, perfect. So that 25 is actually going to be in DuPage FPD's share, so somewhere in one of those, like probably in the 118.
Right. It's
Okay.
buried in the 118, correct.
Okay, excellent. I have no further questions. Alderman Shockey.
Yeah, what fencing are they talking about? I'm just curious about that.
That $25,295 was for the fencing around the flood control, the gates, and the spillway there. That was the infamous Berlin Wall fence. There was also, I can't remember what other fencing was put up around some of the pumping out there. All of the chain link fencing that had gone up at that site at one time was all part of this change order.
That wasn't, that's not the split rail fence.
It's not the split rail fence. The split rail fence was constructed as part of something different. That wasn't part of this.
Okay, and just to be clear, if you'll repeat, this is not part of our share. This is DuPage County, even though we have to okay it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm going to make a motion to approve both change orders, number 1 and number 2, as well as the final financial summary. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? Alderman Shockey.
Yeah, in other words, do we still owe this 93,000 for the, under the financial summary? It's got the breakdown as construction costs.
We've been, throughout the course of time, we've been making payments and receiving revenue in. Itasca still owes us funds. DuPage County still owes us funds. We have been, making payments, so it's already all occurred. We're not going to be cutting a check tomorrow for 93,000, if that's what you're asking.
Or the Phase 3 construction and engineering costs.
The only thing we will have left on the Phase 3 construction engineering is that one final invoice, of which our portion will be approximately $300.
Thank you.
Alderman Wesley.
Gary, back up here now. When will we get the checks from these other organizations? Itasca, the Forest Preserve, and that. Because
Forest-
you know what, this has been years.
Forest Preserve is paid to date for every invoice that we've ever sent them.
Okay.
We are now to the point where we can obviously send them a final invoice.
Okay,
Itasca, and I can't blame Itasca. Itasca wanted to make sure that all the i's were dotted and t's were crossed, and that everybody knew what the final numbers were. And they haven't objected to paying. It's just that they wanted to make sure they knew exactly what was owed. So now we're in the position where we can give that information to them as well, and I'm assuming that they will pay it as well. So we should be getting payment from both of those agencies. I don't have any reason to believe we won't.
okay, thank you.
Anything else on the question? There's a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the sanitary sewer GIS system maps, and it's an update for information only. And Mr. Holm?
Earlier this summer, we did complete our GIS work related to the sanitary sewer system. I wanted to just bring this very briefly to you tonight to show you, that's a snippet of the overall map, and I've got the big map rolled up here. Obviously, this is all electronic. We have it on our computers. We now have our entire sanitary sewer system in the computer, all GPS located, so we know exactly where all structures are. If we click on a particular manhole, it'll tell us the size of the manhole, the material of the manhole, what diameter pipes are in the manhole. We can click on the pipes and they can tell us the diameter and the material type. So anything you wanted to know about our sanitary sewer system, we now know, and we now have computerized in the system. We'll be coming to you in the next month, hopefully, with a proposal for our water system, to proceed forward with our water system. That's in the current budget. And it appears that we'll probably have money in the budget this year to at least do a portion of our storm sewer system as well. So we're making good progress on the GIS towards getting all of our infrastructure into the system.
Alderman Wesley?
So you're saying all the sanitation is in the GIS system now?
Our entire sanitary sewer system is in the GIS system now, yes.
Okay, so now we're going to move forward on the water?
On the water system and the storm system.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, to put this in perspective, we had no idea where this was before, and we used to go on trying to figure out, and they would dig 2 or 3 holes before they could even find some of these sewer lines because they were put in so long ago. This is really something we really needed. This is cost savings, and we're providing this so you understand why we needed the GIS system and what impact it actually has. Being one of the last in DuPage County to finally get this and implement it, it will result in cost savings, and also we'll be able to provide the services much quicker, faster, and more effectively.
Any other questions, comments? Item for information only. Next item is items to be considered at future meetings. Item A, policy on private improvements within public ROW. Now that one, it kind of makes me a little leery. Now, would you prefer to just bounce it off of council first, or is your preference to pull together a whole proposal and then bring it forward?
I think staff is, going to draft something and bring it forward, and then we can have a discussion on it and, proceed from there.
Okay, okay,
We already have kind of an idea of how we'll, want to present it.
okay. Next item B, Emerald Ash Borer Response Plan. Item C, Elmwood Avenue ROW use. Item D, Parkway Tree Ordinance. Item E, Storm Sewers Detention Ordinance Revision. Item F, School Street Pond Project. Item G, Annexations Phase 2. H is MFT Audit Results. Item I, Update on Train Station Reconstruction. And I am going to throw in just a general comment, not necessarily an item for future. I know in a previous meeting we were talking about pond maintenance and upkeep and who's responsible, etc. But I do have an example of where there was a pond in Ward 3 that was not being that it needed better maintenance, and a resident, John Brick, had brought forward and worked together with the Forest Preserve and had the pond that they took an initiative and have cleaned it up, and it does look good. And I believe they put fish in the pond to eat the residual, and so if the Forest Preserve can do it, perhaps other homeowners associations, are certainly responsible as well. Any other items for future meetings? I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. On the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Who's vice chair?
There is, he's gone.
Call Community and Economic Development order, roll call, same as people are present. Is there a motion to approve the minutes, June 14th, 2007? Is there a second? Comments, corrections, additions, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Georgetown TIF, Jeff, you gonna take this one?
Yeah, I'll take it to start. Thank you. Per council recommendation, staff did send out an RFP packet to the following 6 firms listed in your memo. Of the 6 firms, 2 submitted proposals, Camaros Limited and Ellers and Associates. Not really gonna go over another TIF presentation and what TIF is. It's really council's decision to see if they think TIF is applicable in areas in town, so I'm not gonna go there. But if council does decide to go forward with establishing a TIF, the first step would be an eligibility study, and staff is recommending, if we're gonna do an eligibility study, to go with the Camaros proposal.
Alderman Wesley?
On the TIF, I thought also before, is there a deadline that we have to sign a contract with this outfit if we decide to go
No.
forward? I thought there was also a discussion on the council level of, because I think there was a mixed motion on go to a TIF or not. Incentives if we decide to go forward with it. I mean, I really like to see what's going to happen with the TIF, but as you know, some of the aldermen aren't here tonight that brought up that concern about, incentives if we don't go with a TIF. Are we looking at that too or no?
This basically is phase 1. Phase 1 is to look at the feasibility and determine some of those issues.
Okay.
And if you want to delay it, that's fine. The longer we delay, again,
No,
that's the only thing. We're only looking for phase 1 at this point. We did a TIF on phase 1 prior, and we made a determination that in fact it wasn't viable enough. It would have been viable, but before we went forward. So, yeah, you can table this if you'd like.
I don't, Mr. Mayor, can I finish? No, go ahead.
Alderman Shockey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table this till we have a full council.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails. Alderman Winger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a general question, and I do support this, and I say we got to do this. And actually, when I'm at the grocery store, when I'm out and about, when I go to the library, residents are coming up to me and they're asking me about the Georgetown area. And will it be senior housing? And what's going to happen there? They're excited about this. We've gotten a lot of attention on this, and we got to go forward and get this, in motion, and at least do phase one, the feasibility. Our residents are really excited about this. I haven't heard one negative yet. But quick question on the, I know in our last one of the major factors of not going forward with the TIF is that the area we looked at generated too much assessed valuation, I believe. Now, are we in jeopardy of that happening again? Because perhaps we can just ask our finance director to take a quick number tally, just to make sure that we don't go through that route again.
I anticipated somebody was going to ask that, and I did the research already, and the Georgetown area is growing at a slower rate EAV-wise than the average of the rest of the town by a couple percentage points.
Excellent, okay,
It is slower. It's growing, but at a slower rate.
okay, thank you.
But following up on that economic theme, because shopping centers are a little different when you deal with them. I am assuming that it is going to qualify if we spend the $16,000, that it will qualify as a TIF project, but then skipping ahead to phase two, is it economically feasible? Because one of the things you got to do is then, besides acquiring the property, let's assume it's a $25 million cost for the shopping center, but then how do you deal with the individual lessees? For example, like True Value. Let's assume that he's in his third year of his 20-year lease and he's making $1 million per year, so you'd have a $17 million liability with him. Or with Super Low Foods, let's assume that they have a 20-year lease and a 20-year option. I don't know what they would make a store like that. Let's say it's $5 million per year. And at that point, when you add your land acquisition costs, which buying out also then each individual lease, does the project become economically unfeasible?
I can't answer that. I'm not a TIF consultant. What I can go over with you is what we've heard so far from our economic development consultants in the past. They have recommended a TIF in this area, and going forward with this study would perhaps give us some of those answers that you're searching for. As far as funding of this study, in July of '06, the council recommended that we put aside $37,000 to spend on economic developments via the economic development consultant. Since 2006, we've actually spent $16,000 on consultants and studies, but of that $16,000, $11,000 was covered by grants. So really, in over a year, we've only spent $5,000 on economic development. So it is in the budget, and maybe we can get those answers at it.
Yeah, I think before we commit to the 16,000, that'd be a good question to run by the economic development consultant. Whether that, because we're talking about the apartments as well, which I had the same question on that, the acquiring of the land cost, whether then it's economically feasible to do low-income housing there or subsidized housing. Because then we could spend 16,000 on a study and it qualifies, but then economically it just doesn't work.
You could break it up into two sections, possibly, if you wanted to, the Georgetown section and then the apartment section.
Well,
But I'm not a TIF consultant, so I can't answer.
I understand, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's the same basic question. I think both areas qualify for a TIF. Once the study is done, they're going to say that. But then, at the end of the day, is this study going to sit on the shelf and it has no practical economic value?
Well, for instance, if the eligibility study comes back and they say you can do a TIF there, if we did a TIF, and like I said, the EAV is actually going up now already a little bit, we could pay for the infrastructure at least with that TIF increment, even without a new development there.
But what kind of money, cash stream, are you thinking it will generate?
that I don't have the answer for that.
Because you would have to have sufficient cash stream not only cover your land acquisition costs, but the problem is also buying out the leases of all the business owners.
One of the reasons why we hire consultants is to answer these questions. We can't do it in-house, and we can't know the answer to the questions until we study the TIP. And this is what we get into. The alternatives are trying to offer incentives and trying to set this up. But based on what's going on in the area, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. We have entertained other developers to come and look at the apartments. We've had other developers come and look at the same situation, and they walk away from it. All is we're trying to do is get something started. What is the alternative if we don't go forward?
But that's the question I'm asking. Ask our economic development consultant whether this is feasible to TIF Georgetown.
The economic development consultant that we hired recommended that we go ahead with the TIF, and that's what we got out of his expertise based on his area of expertise. That's what we got. We did deliver the findings. Jeff, maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit further.
As part of the Economic Development Consultants Phase 1 report, they outlined a couple of different choices that they, or decisions that they wanted council to make. One of them was to decide on whether or not they wanted to establish a B4 zoning district. They recommended that we do. Whether or not we want to go forward with the grade separation, if funding was available. They recommended that we did do that. 3, accept zoning code revisions. We're going through that process now. 4, develop a TIF with research, or at least develop or research a TIF in the Georgetown area shopping center. 5, develop other incentive packages for future developments like sales tax rebates, things like that, which we already have. And 6, consider the possibility of hiring a master developer either for the Georgetown area, the train station area, the downtown area, the B4 area, and so on. Those were his recommendations in his original report a couple months ago.
Alderman, please.
Basically, what we're looking for is, we, as a city, we can't say we want to TIF this area. There has to be a study, correct?
That's the first step.
Okay. Then, let's say they come back with the study and they say, yes, this area is good for a TIF. Wouldn't it be the responsibility of some developer to bring us a project? It would be up to him if it was feasible, and he would have to show us a plan that we would agree is acceptable to us, correct? It's not like we have to decide if it's going to be feasible or not. The developer is the one who's actually going to put out the money and acquire the property and then come up with his plan. Am I right, or am I looking at this wrong?
Well, again, the city of Wooddale has never gone forward other than the first Phase 1, and we've never gotten to that point where we can make this determination. And again, if you look around, the majority of the communities in DuPage County, I think if almost all but maybe 1 or 2, have at least gone forward with a TIF. A TIF will provide the incentives for infrastructure. Even if it doesn't get developed, we can use the money to do the infrastructure, which has to be redone. The only other alternative is to do a special service area and charge the people in that area. It all has to be redone. We ran across that in the other TIF where some of our infrastructure on Potter was all replaced, so that was a downside again. It's a very technical